Something unexpected just happened in Canada this year. A Filipino woman who cleans bedpans and helps elderly people eat their meals just received one of the country's highest honors. Her face is now on billboards across major cities. News anchors are saying her name every evening. Politicians are calling her a hero in speeches. But here's the twist that shocked the nation. She's not a doctor, not a scientist, not a CEO. She's a caregiver. And what she did changed everything. She transformed an entire nation's idea of what a hero looks like. So how does someone who works in the shadows suddenly end up in the spotlight? And why is her story making people around the world rethink sacrifice? Her journey began in quiet hospital corridors. She worked long shifts caring for elderly patients. She cleaned bedpans, lifted frail bodies, and served meals. Her work was invisible to most, taken for granted. But during a deadly outbreak in her city, everything changed. When staff shortages hit, she refused to leave. She stayed with patients others had abandoned. She fed them, comforted them, and kept them alive. Her courage turned routine labor into extraordinary sacrifice. Word spread quickly through the hospital and beyond. Families of patients told stories of her devotion. Doctors admitted she had saved lives through persistence. Reporters began writing about the quiet nurse's aide. Soon, her name appeared in headlines nationwide. She became a symbol of resilience and compassion. Her actions showed that heroism is not about titles. It is about presence, care, and courage in crisis. The government took notice of her bravery. Officials debated how to honor someone so ordinary yet extraordinary. Finally, she was awarded one of Canada's highest honors. Her face appeared on billboards as a national symbol. She was celebrated not for wealth or invention. She was honored for care, sacrifice, and humanity. This story matters because it challenges assumptions. We often think heroes are doctors, scientists, or leaders. We imagine innovation, discovery, or power as heroic. But here, heroism came from cleaning bedpans. It came from feeding patients who could not eat. It came from refusing to walk away when others did. Her story redefines sacrifice in modern society. Around the world, people began to reflect. Migrant stories like hers are common in Canada. Filipino caregivers have long supported health systems abroad. They send money home, they build lives in silence. But this honor gave visibility to their hidden work. It showed that migrant labor is not disposable. It showed that care is as valuable as science. The lesson is clear and urgent today. Systems matter, money matters, policy matters too. But people matter most, especially those unseen. A caregiver can save lives and inspire nations. Respect must be given to those who hold hospitals together. Her story proves that sacrifice is not about fame. It is about showing up when it matters most. This isn't just a feel-good story. It is about a woman who risked her life. During one of the darkest moments in modern history, she stood firm. While others ran away from danger, she ran toward it bravely. While others protected themselves, she protected strangers without hesitation. And while her own family begged her to come home, she stayed. Her name is Jocelyn Abalos, remembered now across Canada. In 2020, during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, she made a choice. It was a decision that would cost her everything. But before we understand why Canada now calls her a hero, we must look back. Her story doesn't start in Canada. It starts 10,000 kilometers away. In a small village in the Philippines, her journey began. Jocelyn grew up in a place most people have never heard of. A rural town in the province of Pampanga shaped her childhood. There was no running water and no stable electricity. Her family lived in a small house with a tin roof. The roof leaked whenever heavy rains poured down. Her father worked in the rice fields tirelessly. Her mother sold vegetables at the local market daily. Together, they earned less than $2 a day. Jocelyn was the oldest of 5 children in the family. From a very young age, she knew one thing clearly. If she wanted a different life, she would have to leave. At 16 years old, she made a bold decision. She would study nursing, not because she dreamed of it, but because nursing was a ticket out of poverty. In the Philippines, there is a word people use, OFW. Overseas Filipino worker is not just a job title. It is a survival strategy for millions of Filipino families. Every year, millions of Filipinos leave their country to work abroad. They send money home, they build lives in silence. But this honor gave visibility to their hidden work. It showed that migrant labor is not disposable. It showed that care is as valuable as science.
In 2005, at the age of 24, she passed her nursing exam. She applied to work in Canada, hoping for opportunity. 6 months later, she got the call she had dreamed of. She was going to Toronto. A new life awaited. When Jocelyn arrived in Canada, she thought her life would finally change. She imagined herself working in a hospital, wearing scrubs proudly. She thought she would save lives and fulfill her training. But that is not what happened in reality. Her nursing degree from the Philippines wasn't recognized in Canada. She would need to take more classes and pay more money. She would have to wait more years before qualifying. She couldn't afford it, so she took the only job available. She became a personal support worker, a caregiver instead. She worked in nursing homes across the city. She helped elderly people get out of bed each morning. She fed them patiently and bathed them with dignity. She cleaned them when they couldn't clean themselves. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't respected, and it wasn't well paid. She earned minimum wage and worked 12-hour shifts. She was exhausted, but kept sending money home every month. Her siblings went to school because of her sacrifice. Her parents fixed the roof with her earnings. Her family survived because Jocelyn kept working. Years passed. 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. She never became a nurse in a hospital, but she became something else entirely, a lifeline. For the elderly people she cared for, Jocelyn wasn't just a worker. She was the person who held their hand when they were scared. She was the person who remembered their birthday with kindness. She was the person who stayed late when no one else would. But in 2020, everything changed dramatically. COVID-19 hit Canada like a freight train. The first place it struck hardest was nursing homes. Elderly people were dying by the hundreds daily. The virus spread through hallways and shared rooms. It moved silently through the air without mercy. Staff members started quitting in fear and panic. They didn't have proper protective equipment to use. They didn't have enough training to stay safe. They didn't want to die, so they left. In some nursing homes, 70% of staff walked out. The people left behind were mostly immigrants and women, mostly caregivers like Jocelyn, who had no choice. They couldn't afford to quit or lose income. They didn't have savings or other job options. And so they stayed, even when staying meant danger, even when it became clear that staying could kill them. Let's go back to March 2020 in Toronto. The nursing home where Jocelyn worked was Eatonville Care Center. It was located in Etobicoke, a busy neighborhood. It was a large facility with over 200 residents. Most were over 80 years old with serious conditions. On March 15th, the first resident tested positive. Within 2 weeks, 50 residents were infected quickly. Within a month, half the building was sick. The hallways smelled like disinfectant and death constantly. Ambulances came every day, sometimes twice a day. Families couldn't visit. They stood outside windows crying. They held signs begging for information desperately. Inside, the staff were overwhelmed and exhausted. They wore garbage bags as gowns for protection. They reused masks for days without replacements. They worked 16-hour shifts with no breaks. One by one, staff members started getting sick. By April, 30 staff members had COVID. By May, 5 of them had died. Jocelyn kept working despite the growing danger. Jocelyn had a choice she could make. She could go home to her Toronto apartment. She lived alone and would be safe there. But if she stayed home, residents would suffer. Her supervisor called one night in desperation. "Jocelyn, I need you tomorrow. We don't have enough people." She said yes, without hesitation or delay. Her sister in the Philippines called her next day. "Ate, please, come home. It's too dangerous." Jocelyn told her, "I can't. These people need me." Her sister cried. Jocelyn cried too, but she stayed. Every morning, she put on her mask and gloves. She walked into that building ready to serve. Every night she wondered, will I get sick today? Caregivers are invisible, though society needs them. In Canada, there are over 400,000 personal support workers. 70% of them are women. 50% are immigrants. Many come from the Philippines, India, and Jamaica. They do the hardest, most emotional work daily. They deal with bodily fluids, dementia, and death. They earn an average of $15 per hour.
In Toronto, that is barely enough to pay rent. During COVID, politicians called them essential workers. But essential didn't mean protected or valued. Essential meant expendable in the system. They were expected to show up regardless, even without proper equipment or hazard pay, even when people were dying around them. And people like Jocelyn didn't have a choice. Many were on work visas tied to jobs. If they quit, they could lose immigration status. They could be deported, so they stayed. And many died in silence and invisibility. By the end of 2020, over 20,000 healthcare workers were infected. More than 50 had died, most of them caregivers. Most were immigrants, most were women, and most unnamed. In late April 2020, Jocelyn started feeling sick. She had a fever, cough, and lost her taste. She knew what it was immediately. She got tested and was positive. She was told to go home and isolate. But the nursing home called her again. "Jocelyn, we're desperate. Can you come back when you recover?" She said yes without hesitation. 2 weeks later, she returned to work. She was still weak. Her lungs hurt badly. But she came back because residents needed her. One resident was Margaret, 89 years old. She had Alzheimer's and didn't recognize her children. But she recognized Jocelyn every morning. She would smile and say, "There's my angel." In early May, Margaret got COVID and couldn't breathe. She was taken to the hospital quickly. She died 3 days later without Jocelyn present. Jocelyn wasn't allowed to attend the funeral. She cried alone in the staff room. In June 2020, a journalist visited Eatonville Care Center. She was writing a story about nursing home deaths. She interviewed staff members and met Jocelyn. Jocelyn told her story not for attention. She wanted people to understand what was happening. The article was published a week later. The headline read, "The Filipino caregivers who stayed when everyone else left." It went viral across Canada. Thousands of people shared it widely. News channels picked it up immediately. Radio stations called Jocelyn for interviews. Suddenly, people were paying attention to caregivers. They were angry about lack of protection. They asked why workers were paid so little. They asked why it took a pandemic to care. Protests started outside nursing homes and government buildings.
People held signs saying, "Pay them more." Others wrote, "Protect them," and "They are heroes." Jocelyn didn't feel like a hero herself. She felt exhausted, but something had shifted. People were finally seeing her clearly. In November 2021, the Canadian government announced something unusual. They created a new award, the Caregiver Recognition Medal. It would honor frontline workers who showed extraordinary courage. Jocelyn was one of the first recipients. The ceremony was held in Ottawa with leaders present. The Prime Minister attended and cameras flashed. Jocelyn stood on stage in a simple dress. She looked uncomfortable with the attention. When she received the medal, she didn't smile. She cried thinking about Margaret and others lost. She thought about her sister begging her to come home. She thought about caregivers who had risked everything. She thought about those who had never been recognized. In her speech, she said, "I am not special. I just did my job. But I hope this means people will finally see us. We are not invisible. We are here, and we matter." The room erupted in applause for her courage. Today, Jocelyn still works as a caregiver. She didn't become rich and she didn't become famous, but something changed in her world and beyond. In 2022, the Ontario government passed a new law. It increased the minimum wage for personal support workers. It required better training for those on the front lines. It required better protective equipment in every facility. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. And it happened because people like Jocelyn spoke up, because they refused to stay invisible anymore. Her story became a symbol of resilience and sacrifice, not just in Canada, but around the world.
In the Philippines, her face appeared in newspapers. In community centers, her story was told to youth. She became proof that sacrifice isn't only about big moments. It is about showing up every single day, even when no one is watching or applauding. Heroes don't always wear capes in the spotlight. Sometimes they wear scrubs in quiet hospital corridors. Sometimes they clean bedpans without recognition or praise. Sometimes they hold the hand of a dying stranger. They make them feel less alone in their final moments. Jocelyn Abalos didn't ask to be a hero. She simply refused to look away when the world needed her most. And maybe that is the real lesson of courage. Courage isn't about being fearless in danger. It is about being afraid and staying anyway. So the next time you see a caregiver or cleaner or a worker in the shadows doing unseen labor, remember, you might be looking at someone who saved a life and never said a single word about it.